latest episode of the Coffee House Experience. Our guest today is Barry O'Brien, and we'll be discussing his latest book, a work of narrative nonfiction titled The Anglo-Indians, a portrait of a community. Uh, while Barry Sir needs no introduction, these are the specifics. Barry Sir has been deeply involved in the affairs of the Anglo-Indian community for over 3 decades. He began his work for the community at the grassroots levels and was nominated to represent it in the West Bengal Legislative Assembly from 2006 to 2011. Since 2001, he has been a governing body member of the All India Anglo-Indian Association and its president-in-chief since 2016. A prolific writer, he has delved in various fields like sports journalism and social commentary, writing for the likes of the Pioneer and the Telegraph. He is also one of the country's leading quizmasters, having conducted quizzes across the country for schools, colleges, and the corporate sector for over 3 decades. It's a pleasure to have you, Barry, sir.
My pleasure.
So, to start with, let's circle back to the 15th century and with the coming of Vasco da Gama and the Portuguese to India. So, typically, as is common with the colonization project, it comes up with a set of people intermediate between the colonizers and the colonized, with the colonized being the Indians here and the new people, intermediate people being the Anglo-Indians. So, if we could start with what a technical definition of an Anglo-Indian is.
Well, the technical definition, I need to say this right up front, that the Constitution of India thought it important to define who the Anglo-Indian is. You won't get it in any other, you won't get the definition of any other community in the Constitution of India. In fact, I don't think you'll get it in any constitution of any country in the world. Why would they define a community? But they needed to define it because the fact that the British and before them the Portuguese and the French and the Dutch, they came here, and because there was India, the Anglo-Indian community evolved. The definition is you must be of European descent from your father's side. The word they use is progenitor, which means biologically you must be your father, grandfather, great-great-grandfather, or whatever, should be of European descent. It says European. So actually, this word or term Anglo-Indian is, many people argue, perhaps correctly, misleading, because Anglo-Indian means British India. But the reason they use this Anglo-Indian term is because after, say, 1700s or so, there was nobody else around except the British. And so therefore you have, so the Portuguese came first, and the Portuguese had this set policy, like a template. They did it in other places also, where they liked India, so they wanted to hang around over here. So they actually, right from the start, they actually, not Vasco da Gama himself, but just after him, they actually, created some enthusiasm that told their soldiers, marry Indian women. And in the bargain, of course, they became Christians, they became Catholics because the Portuguese were Catholics. So their offspring, their children, they were called Luso-Indians then. So technically they're the first Anglo-Indians. Now many Anglo-Indians say that according to the Constitution is not mentioned over there, that you have to speak English. It says of European descent. So arguably, you could be speaking Portuguese, you could be speaking French at home, you could be speaking Dutch at home, and you'd be Anglo-Indian. Anyway, let's not get into that. So what happened was that community evolved. Then there was marriage within themselves, as well as other Europeans married these Luso-Indian women. So, second, third generation. Then the British came, and everybody knows the history of that part. And then the British were not, their reason was different from the Portuguese. The Portuguese came with looking for spice, and they came with the crucifix. That means their Catholicism very much upfront. Whereas the British didn't come, weren't interested in that. They were interested in trade. They were interested in the bucks. And anyway, so they also realized that if we have our own community, I mean, another community which is sort of loyal to us, yet they can put up with hardships more easily. They can be handle malaria more easily, or be an in-between community. So they actually started, not initially, but finally, they started actually incentivizing British people over here to marry Indians or Luso-Indian women, because the Portuguese or women of Portuguese Indian origin were still around, obviously. Then what happened was, for more than 100, 150 years, these people married within the community. So therefore, this culture, a separate culture and a separate community evolved only when they started doing that. So their culture obviously was different from other people in India, and definitely different now from their European ancestors. So that's how it evolved finally. And then, well, we won't finish the whole story in one go, but that was how the community started. And initially, because they all looked almost European, etc., and they took,
Right.
their father's name and their father's religion, they were considered part of them, no difference. Then the British, I think, late 1780s, 1790s, they suddenly got ghabarowed by what was happening in other parts of the world, where the colonized were being threatened to be chucked out by the colonists, those who were colonizing. They were being threatened in Haiti, particularly, where the local people and the mixed population, they got together and chucked these guys out. So they thought this is going to happen over here, etc. So they started coming down and discriminating again. So I brought you through the origin and through the definition.
Yep, sure. So I think moving ahead.
I just want to ask you, Stranger, you're a person in the media. You would be interested, but do you think people around would find something like this interesting? Would they?
I'm not in.
What do you?
I'm not in the media, to be honest. So I work. My co-hosts work as well. So this is a passion project that we typically
No, I know, but
pursue.
you're in the media. I mean, you're in the media. I
Yeah.
mean, whether you do it like a passion or whatever, you are in the media. No, what I'm asking you is, do you think you're a younger person? Okay, I know older people. Do you think you wanted to talk about this book? Do you think there are listeners or viewers, people who'd be interested in this? I'm
I
asking you, and you can record. I mean, record it and show it to everyone. Also, be asking you this.
I'm being very honest out here. So I have had the privilege of studying in Anglo-Indian schools. So two stints: the Roman Catholic school, which is St. Lawrence, and the Methodist school, which is Calcutta Boys. And this focus on character building, and although there were some differences, subtle differences between the two schools, I found
Oh yeah,
St. Lawrence to be a bit puritanical given the strain of Christianity, and Calcutta Boys not so much. But there's this focus on character building, and generally there's this worldview that I have seen is inculcated in people who have been through this schooling system, which I don't see in others. So I was someone who was very, very
okay.
enthusiastic when I first came across your interview in the Telegraph, probably, where you said that you were writing this book, and it was about to be launched, I think, around November last year. So after reading it, and you see all those familiar names like Gidney, Thoburn, Laidlaw, etc., etc. Like, we had houses named after them in our school. So it's someone like me would find it
Ah,
very interesting. It's a very
okay.
Calcutta-ish, Calcutta connection-ish
Oh,
thing
that's
that
it. I get it. Yeah. Okay.
makes, yep. So anyhow,
What are
moving
what are the
forward,
names of the houses in Calcutta, boys?
Thoburn,
What are
Laidlaw,
the names
Vaughan,
of
and
the houses, just for my interest?
Thoburn, Laidlaw,
Really? Oh,
Vaughan,
I didn't even know that.
Thoburn, Laidlaw, Vaughan, and Henderson.
Wow, great.
Yeah. So, moving forward, quoting from your book, never a Goliath, always a David. The community has invariably punched above its weight and lived to tell a tale. So this, so as you initially laid out the lay of the land for us, there was this phase where there was an initial crest for the Anglo-Indian community, followed by a trough. And this trough continued all the way till a major rupture point, which is the Sepoy Mutiny in 1857. If you could speak a bit about it.
So basically, 1780s, 90s, where they came down with a couple of acts or whatever they may call it then, basically saying that these jobs, they kept only the lowly jobs in the army for Anglo-Indians, whereas before Anglo-Indians were shining in the army. Then Anglo-Indian, British fathers could not take their Anglo-Indian sons, and so these things came about, and the community went through a really bad phase, and there was poverty, and there was, really, we felt a great loss. They felt lost, in fact, because they had nowhere to go to. So in the early 19th century, that's 1820s or so, comes along a couple of incredible people, John William Ricketts, the Kidd brothers, who after whom Khidirpur, or as some anglicized people call it, Kidapur, of Calcutta is named after them, because they were the great shipbuilders, the Kidd brothers, the two brilliant brothers, plus John
Botanical
William
Gardens as
Ricketts
well.
and Derozio.
Botanical
Botanical
Gardens
Garden,
also is also of the
their
community.
their 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 uncle or somebody, anyway, from
Okay,
the
okay,
Kidd,
okay,
not exactly them, I think. Anyway,
okay.
so the and Derozio, so they got together in Ripon Street at a meeting. Basically, John William Ricketts was taking the lead, and they got together. I think it was 29 Ripon Street, or what was the address. And they got together and they said, listen, two things happened post that. One is they said, listen, let's get together and let's make a petition to the government. But where's the government? Government meant Parliament in Britain. Can you see how far-fetched? Imagine that time thinking of going. But the fellows were desperate and they did it. They got together, they formed a long petition about, blah, blah, blah. And obviously accepted the British as, others they wouldn't have gone, they're going there to say, listen, we require these things. We're being neglected. And John William Ricketts was selected, and they pooled in money. And he actually went there. Must have taken him 6 months to go there.
Right.
So that was one where he actually submitted this to Parliament. And secondly, and perhaps that time they didn't realize it, more importantly, they said, listen, we've got to concentrate on education. We can't just wait for the British. So they actually founded their own school. I'm very bad with names, I can't remember all names, Parental Academy, whatever, which they started there in that St. Xavier's area of Park Street. So no one should be misled. That didn't become St. Xavier's. That finally, in fact, became St. Paul's, Darjeeling.
Okay.
It became St. Paul's, and then later on went to Darjeeling. But that's the birth of St. Paul's, Darjeeling, right here. So what is the significance? The significance is the rest of the schools that came were from the church, missionaries actually, who started schools, who came from wherever, Belgium or Ireland, wherever, as well as the governments telling the missionaries, yeah, you do schools. But this was a people's initiative. A community owned, a community governed, a community initiated school. So that is the significance. So anyway, that went on. Unfortunately, and I've written a nice, I think a line that I really like. Sometimes, I can't remember the exact line, but I'll quote. I'll just keep quoting off the top of my head rather than finding pages. Death played a decisive role in our community's future. Because if these guys lived, Derozio, the Kidd brothers, and Ricketts, things would have been different, I can tell. Pakka. Okay. Because these were sensible, educated people who could, put forward, they were leaders, actually, real good leaders. And in fact, leaders who could have been great Indian leaders for India. So anyway, so basically all four died within 10-15 years of each other, all prematurely. Somebody in their 20s, somebody in their 30s, somebody in their 40s, all died. So this movement died. And once again, no scene, bad scene. And the British couldn't give two hoots. Then comes the revolt of 1857, which we call the First War of Independence or whatever now. But so with the British were up their backstood against the wall. So what did they do? Again, they turned to the Anglo-Indian community. And what did the Anglo-Indian community do? Because they were always loyal to their father's side. They said, yeah, we are there. And they played a decisive and a key role in protecting the British as well as fighting for the British, Anglo-Indians and the Sikhs. So I've written over there, tongue-in-cheek and rather naughtily, I wonder what would have happened if the Anglo-Indian community basically sat on its hands, or worse still, went on the other side. Would independence have come 70 years before, 100 years before, 90 years before we became independent? Who knows? Who knows means I think it would have been a good guess that it would have come earlier, you know. So anyway, that happened, and there are a lot of stories about how the British used the Anglo-Indian during the revolt, and then they are not even listed as Anglo-Indian deaths. So many of them are just shown as British, but actually there are almost a lot of the Anglo-Indians. Anyway, independence over, I beg pardon, revolt over, back to square one. They gave a few dregs, but back to square one. Situation bad. It was so bad, Srinjoy, since you and I are both from Calcutta. You know the Club Dalhousie Institute DI, where all the
Yep,
quizzing
yep,
happens.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
you've been there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been there.
So where the quizzing happens, it's now everyone knows it across the country as the quiz club, or the quizzing capital, or whatever. Well, there were actually meetings held by the Anglo-Indian community and concerned Britishers and missionaries more than once over there, and once in the 1880s, I think, and once much later, where there was concern about the really bad situation of Anglo-Indians with regard to how the way they lived, and how so many of them were poor, and so many of them were sort of abject poverty. They actually had meetings about this, right then. I'm talking about 1870s, 80s. Okay. So anyway, this went on, and again there was a bit of realization, and there were a few leaders coming up saying that, listen, boss, this is too much. Let's organize ourselves as a community. And then the All India Anglo-Indian Association was founded in 1876 under a different name. The name changed 2 or 3 times, but that was the birth of the All India Anglo-Indian Association that I had today, founded in 1876, again in Calcutta. Calcutta was the hub. I mean, everything was happening here.
Yep.
Yeah. So that, and there were other leaders also. There was a leader who broke away from the association, Mr. White from the South. But anyway, leaders started, sort of coming up, and then there were the other extreme. Then by the turn of the century, early 1900s, there were already 3-4 associations. This is what happens in any community. One association, then it becomes 2, then it becomes 4, because they keep splitting up. But the fact of the matter is, there were associations. They were not all together under one umbrella, but it evolved. Now there was a whole thing of slowly, gradually, there were people like the great writer and educationist Stark, who said, basically lamented, like basically we're here because of the British, and saying, we'll always be British and all that thing. At the turn of the century, as recently as the early 1900s. And people started feeling, some people, but only in whispers, that what are you talking about here? When they go, you think they're going to take us with them? Or would we want to go to a country so far away? Slowly, but not much. So when Gidney comes in 1920s, he plays the now I have to read to you these few lines. He plays he has to walk the tightrope, I say. He has to walk the tightrope, on one side doffing his bowler hat to the empire, and on the other side doing the Indian rope trick.
Right. Yep.
Okay. So I've given credit to De Rosio for basically giving the seed of the idea of nationalism much before anyone else, not Anglo-Indian, much before any Indian, anyone did it. He talked about "To India, my native land." They were not talking about "To India, my native land" in the 1820s when De Rosio did. So I've given him the credit for that. Then I've given, then Anthony had to, 100 years later, this Kidney played the balance. Okay. And to cut the long story short, Srinjoy, 1942, just 5 years before independence, back in the DI, Dalhousie Institute, that same club, when they had a function or meeting of for concern out of the community, it ended by singing "God Save the King" as recently as 1942. So the identity was clear.
Right.
That we are not Indians. Yeah, we are not Indians, boss. We may have lived in India 3 generations, 5 generations, whatever. Okay. Comes along Frank Anthony, and in fact, I love this anecdote. 1932 Olympic Games. 9 of the 11 first 11 players were
Yep.
Anglo-Indians. So they were given their attire to wear for the march past, and it had pagadi and all. So all of them were okay except one fellow. His name is Arthur Hind,
Fine.
spelled Hind, and I've written over there in brackets, not as in Jai Hind, not that pronunciation. Arthur Hind.
Right.
This fellow says, "I won't wear it. I won't wear this Indian costume, pagadi and all." So they were sending him home on disciplinary grounds. Finally, his other Anglo-Indian mates must have got around him and said, "You fool, you better wear it. It looks quite nice also." So he wore it and then he stayed. This is just 15 years before independence. So this, what should I say, awakening, when I was writing this book, the greatest thing it has done for me, it has shown me as I'm not a history student, but I'm a history student. I mean, I like history, or I like, evolving history. And I saw that in the matter of 10, 20 years, 2, 3 decades, the community has completely rethought and reinvented itself. That is amazing. I don't think you'll get it anywhere in history. So 1942, Kidney premature death, Frank Anthony takes over, and I think he checked out the British first. It's quite clear in my book also. He
Yep.
went and said, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" etc. He saw no go.
Yeah.
So he used a lot of common sense and said, "This is not happening. No, let's not waste my time." Basically, he went and said, can we? And there was a lot of talk about whether we will continue in India in a state, or whether we'll go somewhere else, or go back to a country which our grandfathers came from. Then he took a decision. No, let's talk to these gentlemen. And he spoke to Sardar Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Mahatma Gandhi. And the best response came from Sardar Patel. And initially, in fact, Pandit Nehru was not very keen. Gandhi was not keen. Gandhiji was not keen. Pandit Nehru was okay, but Sardar Patel understood the whole thing. Finally, they all agreed. And he put all his eggs in the Indian basket, and he told everybody, "Listen, this is it. We are here. This is our country. Whoever has to go can go." But so this whole what should I say? It seems so easy to say it, but imagine how difficult it must have been. Obviously, then Anthony became one side a hero, the other side saying, "What is wrong with this fellow? Yeah, we've got a chance to go. Come on, let's go. What? Stay here and do what? And well, if you want me to talk about it now, or will you come to that question later of
Yeah,
why people went?
I think we can recircle to this point later. I had an orthogonal question of sorts. So this is not specifically from the book, but it's basically Thomas Carlyle's theory of great men. So history is dictated by great men, and it's these characters or figures who shape the arc of history. From your book, it becomes very apparent that for you, these two great men are a Gidney, and the second is Frank Anthony, right? So I'm just curious, if Gidney or Anthony had not existed, do you think the Anglo-Indian community en masse would have had a different trajectory?
Uh, I say only two, and only those two also hypothetically you're taking away. So to answer your question, to answer, my theory is different. They should have been more. If they
Okay.
were more, it would have been different. And I'll tell you why. Anyway, I'll come to both. This is a very good question. Obviously, today, if you ask, okay, the freedom struggle was not just Gandhi,
Yep,
but if you
absolutely.
yeah. But if you take so in Indian context, let's not keep it at two. Anglo-Indian community small, so two. So in an Anglo-Indian context, Anglo-Indian context, but in Indian context, take away Gandhi, take away Nehru, take away everybody, Netaji, take away Jinnah, take away anyone, yeah, take away 5, 6. Situation may have been different. So obviously, but if these two gentlemen weren't there and there was no leader, uh, I I shudder to think what would have happened, but I think 90% would have gone.
Okay.
Good question, Srinjoy. Yeah, 90% would have gone because I mean, only a leader can where that he can tell you, listen, hang around, or let's see, or this is good. But there would have been no one, so they would have just plain clothes. I'm saying ship clothes would have just gone. They would not have been they would not have been an identifiable formal community. See, ours is an official formal community,
Right.
even though this current government has taken the seats away, but still I'm the head of a formal organization. We have branches all over. Plus, there are other organizations, and we have a defined culture of our own, etc. So that's what. But what I have also I have also played the devil's advocate by saying, what if there were more leaders? What if there were people who could sort of it became Gidney. When Gidney went, it became Anthony. Imagine if there were some other brains. There was a brains trust. Yeah.
Right.
And in hindsight, if today you ask me, if a good fairy told you turn the clock back, what would you take it back to? I would take it back to independence. And I would say, listen, Pandit Nehru, Sardar Patel ji, Vallabhbhai Patel ji, and Gandhi ji, and everybody else, we are Indians. We will stay anywhere in India, but please give us one jaga. Because, and then even if it was half the size of 1/3 the size of Goa or Sikkim, today the Anglo-Indian community would have had its own little state, the smallest state in India, or union territory or whatever, with its own 2 MPs being elected, with its
Right.
own 30 MLAs being elected, with its own identity. It would have been fantastic and phenomenal. I've written about it in the book. And imagine what an education hub it would have been. You yourself would have
Yes.
gone there. You yourself would have gone there because there would have been St. Lawrence there and CBS there and La Martiniere there and St. Xavier's there, Loreto there. And who knows, obviously colleges would have evolved. It didn't need here because here, the IITs came about. There are some missionary colleges, of course, but here it became, others got involved in the government, etc. For higher studies I'm talking about. But school education hub. Today, if you look at Dehradun,
Right.
it's a school education hub. And India now has mastered this. So you can go to Kota, where it
Yes.
becomes a tutorial joint entrance, whatever hub. Right, wrong, that's a different thing. This should have been a school hub. Now, who would come? The parents would come because their children are over there. Teachers would come. Okay. And the other thing would have been we know how to enjoy ourselves. Or let's put it this way, we knew how to enjoy ourselves. Now we don't enjoy ourselves so much as we used to. We do compared to others, but not as much. Perhaps it's a boon because our children are now busy. They don't want to play games so much or at all, or they want to study. Yeah. So like everybody else. But that would have been a swinging place. It would have attracted Indian tourists and tourists from abroad because there would have been jazz music, pop music, rock music, theater, the musicals, the work, stage shows, and all. So, can you imagine that within the context and content of India? It would have been phenomenal, phenomenal.
The closest I can think of is Shillong, probably. I think a city like Shillong, or an
Not
extended
bad, not
state like Park Street, a state that resembles Park Street. I don't know.
yeah, you've done it beautifully, Srinjoy, because Park Street was not only food and drink. Park Street is character. Park Street is charisma. Park Street is educational institutions. So many
Yes.
educational institutions are around Park Street also. Yeah, so that's that's the type of place. And on a serious note, what happened was they gave us these two Lok Sabha seats and one seat in assemblies. But who selected them? The politicians selected them, not the people. They were thrust upon the people. In some cases, the choice were good. Some cases, the choice were okay. In some cases, the choice were pathetic. So, so the seats were not our representatives. So that's where I think the community goofed at that time. Just saying, okay, give us two seats and give us one seat. That was the wrong thing. Don't give us this. Give us one chota jaga and for 20, 30 years, back us.
Right.
Back us. Would all Anglo-Indians have gone there? No, 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 no. A small percentage of Anglo-Indians have gone there, and then it would have started, and then everybody else would have gone there. I mentioned this in my book. I was once stuck between, I don't know, Ludhiana and Jalandhar, I think, and I was going to one of the airports this side, and I was stuck. And I said, for 2.5 hours, I said, what's going on the street? Chhat Puja. I said, Chhat Puja in Punjab? They said, yeah, thousands of farmers from Bihar earn a living in Punjab.
Yes. Yes.
So imagine also the Anglo-Indian state, whatever we called it, that wouldn't have been comprising Anglo-Indians only. No, 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 no. Everyone would have gone there, whoever, and many Anglo-Indians would have lived elsewhere. I mean, I don't know whether I would have gone there. I may have chosen to live in Calcutta because people live everywhere, isn't it?
So moving forward, I think let's circle back to the association. So from your book, I get the sense that the association in its early years was as prolific as the Communist Party in India in terms of number of splits they underwent. There was this sense of coalescing to two major power centers, which is the All India Anglo-Indian Association and the Association of Southern India. Uh, I just wanted to get your thoughts. Do you think such a bipolar structure was good, or did you feel, or do you now feel, with the benefit of hindsight, that a more federal structure would have done the community good? So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, there's also the third. If you, I mean, read between the lines, there's the Kerala.
Yeah.
The Kerala Association, which I have not written too much about, but they say thousands and thousands of numbers still. In fact, the newly elected president was in touch with me the other day.
Okay.
There's a big issue over there, whether they are Anglo-Indians or not. That's a separate issue, because we'll come to that, I hope, where we talk about culture and who is an Anglo-Indian in terms of that. Basically, I mean, I've written my book. Let's say you have a Portuguese sounding name. You are Christian, right?
Right.
But you don't, you only speak, say, Malayalam. You dress like everybody else over there. So culturally, you're a Malayali, you're a Keralite, which is great. Nothing wrong with that. But would you fit into an Anglo-Indian association or an Anglo-Indian whatever, wedding culture or a dance or a event in say Bangalore or in say Calcutta or in say Chennai or in say Delhi? No. So can you imagine? See, you're a Bengali. If you will someday, I'm sure, go and you will be in Durga Puja, you will be either in London or in New York. and they are there, and they speak with a little accent and all, but the culture is the same, boss.
Right.
I mean, the pujo is happening, and they're trying to do the donuchi nach and the whatever, So that will bond. In fact, they'll all speak Bangla. Their children may speak broken Bangla, but so culture and language, okay, they are the unifiers of any community. Culture and the language. So that's why the Kerala is. I mean, however, for me, I mean, as a leader or as a person, if you want to call yourself Anglo-Indian or you feel you're Anglo-Indian as a community, as a group, then fine, you're Anglo-Indian. How does it matter? I mean, how can I tell you, you're not? Okay. But coming back to your question, see, the problem in any community or any organization is breakaways, splinters, etc. I'll just be very upfront with you, there is a good organization called CAIS in Calcutta. There's a good organization called Guild in Bangalore, maybe one or two more places in Karnataka. Okay. And maybe the Kerala I've just told you. So that's about it. So it's the All India Anglo-Indian Association. But to answer your question now, the All India Anglo-Indian Association should have told everybody, listen, it's federal, but it's part of the All India Anglo-Indian Association. So they should have empowered, if you know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say the All India Anglo-Indian Association, Chennai, the All India Anglo-Indian Association, Kerala, or whatever. That would have been a more manageable thing. By federal, you have to be part of a union. The union is made up of the states. So if it was everybody on their own, your state, you have one, you have South one, you have North one, etc. I don't think that would have been a good idea. They should have, Gidney did it. Gidney called everybody together in 1926. As much as possible, he put it together. So I think this would have happened in any case because people have different opinions. People pull in different directions. Many leaders are pretty self-centered, etc. So frankly, for me, I have great respect and regard for all these organizations. I don't tell anyone, hey, they don't have many members. Hey, they don't bother about them. Who are they? Yeah, and I'm the largest. I've got 63 branches, founded in 1876. That arrogance probably set in. So that is off-putting. That is ostrich in the sand mentality, which I've quoted in my book. No, that was wrong. Nobody did it to harm anybody, but that was wrong. So at that time, if the leader of the All India Anglo Association called meetings and all, people would have come, and said, let's deliberate, let's organization. Maybe we'll become one organization, but let's talk about it. I think the problem was, like it is today, there are many political parties which are Delhi-centric. When I say Delhi-centric, I mean the social circle of Delhi. They call it Lutyens, Delhi, and all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're in a cocoon, right? You have to come out of it. So I think our community also, the leadership, they were busy attending parliament and busy living in Delhi. And then when they got older, they couldn't even move. And now it's easy for me. I am in touch with all my branches here, right here. I don't move. I have not moved for 3-4 years of the lockdown.
Okay.
But I'm in touch. I know what's happening. They know what's happening, etc. But those days, except for one train journey, which they took a couple of times. So I think, basically they should have got more leaders involved. I am very keen on, I became the president-in-chief in 2016. I'm absolutely sure that it's not going to be a long one. Long stint. Okay, but my predecessors, God bless them, they were great men. Mr. Frank Anthony, 50 plus years. My father, 22 years. So this is, I don't want to judge anyone, but this is too long. And this is certainly too long for the current 22 years. I don't know what's going, as it is, I don't know what's going on in technology. Yeah, we need a younger person. So having, because the world keeps changing. And also, fatigue sets in without realization, not fatigue as in any particular, not fatigue as in my interest or my passion. No, fatigue as in what new ideas can I come up with? So I think, 6 years, 8 years, this sort of a thing is fine. But longer than that, I don't think it's advisable. So I am very consciously, and I say it in a public forum, very consciously looking for leaders, many leaders who are from the education background, leaders from the corporate, and telling them, listen, join and become part of the All India Anglo-Indian Association. Come on to the governing body. Just this year, Srinjoy,
Right.
I have inducted, or we have inducted 5 new people. Okay, one is a professor, college professor, principal of a college in Pondicherry. One is a just retired English professor from Agra. One is a top corporate person from Bangalore. One is a highly capable person who works as the bursar of a very important school in Lucknow, but he has a corporate background. So what I'm saying
Okay.
is, these people from this, the leader, one from this and the other people who have been in my organization for many years, from all of them, one leader will come. But more important than one leader is the leadership. So this wasn't, I'm sorry to say, this was not thought about at all. So whether it
Right.
was people, they were too old at some stage, or they didn't think about it, or their style was different, that's, I don't want to judge them. But I think now it has to be, the leader is less important, the leadership is important. So the association has evolved a lot, and it will continue to evolve. Not just credit to me. I think it could have been anyone who had taken over instead of me. I don't think those days have gone now. They're gonna, anyway, any organization, people carrying on for years and years and years. Any organization, whether it be any political party or any club or any social organization, you have the same person leading for 20, 30 years. I can across the board tell you it will stagnate. Sure.
Moving forward, let's perhaps double click on what you mentioned earlier. It's about the political representation of the Anglo-Indian community in the lower and the upper houses of the parliament. The first phase was obviously this enduring duo of Frank Anthony and A.T. Barrow, who were parts of multiple successive Lok Sabhas. And the first break or rupture of sorts was the Janata Dal, and I think it's your professor, Professor Rudolph Rodriguez, who was nominated, was your professor at Jadavpur University, to once again the
I'm
Congress
very
Committee.
happy. I'm very happy. A young person like you, who who does so many things. You've actually read the book, and friends, it's a really pretty thick book to read. But he has read it, so I'm really happy that you read it, and it's sort of, even some names have remained with you. Good.
Yeah, so this was an enduring phase till the late 90s, where there was this patch where earlier the consensus was that whoever was being nominated by the association would automatically make it to the Lok Sabha. And the late 90s on, this kind of stopped, even when you had a UPA government in power, all the way to 2019 when the reservations stopped. We still have an Anglo-Indian parliamentarian now, your brother, but yes, he does not come from those reserved seats. He has been nominated by a political party. So yeah, if you could just speak about this entire transition.
Yeah, so basically, as I've already said, that I wish it wasn't nominated like this. I
Yeah.
wish they gave us one small place, elect 2 MPs, elect 1 MP, and have your own assembly. That didn't happen anyway. So initially it was fine, because the All India Anglo-Indian Association was most visible, biggest, blah blah. So Frank Anthony and Mr. Barrow. Also, it was a Congress, every 5 years, called the Congress, Pandit Nehru, and then after that Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi, etc. So he knew them very well also. In fact, he fought Mrs. Gandhi's, Frank Anthony fought Mrs. Gandhi's case, the Shah
Yep.
Commission, for the emergency. Anyway, so obviously, as soon as, I mean, I've written as a joke, not as a joke, I've written over there, it's true. As soon as the Congress won an election, general election, Mr. Barrow and Mr. Anthony would choose which suits they'll wear. And they would just land up to be sworn. It's automatic.
Yeah.
But if you read my book carefully, in the late 60s, Mr. Anthony got a taste of what was to come. And he spoke about it. In Kerala and in Bengal, they started doing their own thing because they were non-Congress governments. You know, they were left governments. And so they started doing their own thing. In the 60s in Bengal, wasn't left, it was a coalition government, but with the left front in the government. And he was furious. But that was the start of things to come.
Yeah.
Then comes post-emergency. Now, you have represented Mrs. Gandhi for the commission. And you have lost. You have taken on me, Morarji Desai, as Morarji Desai was then the Prime Minister of the Bombay province, which was basically equivalent to Chief Minister. So it's a Chief Minister. For some case, it was a very important education case where they took a stupid decision. They said that the government said that only Anglo-India, only if your mother tongue is English, you can study in an English medium school, which was nonsense. It was defeated in court. Who defeated who? Frank Anthony defeated Morarji Desai, basically. Nani Palkhiwala is also. Do you think if Morarji Desai become the Prime Minister in 77, do you, or not 77, do you think I could invite you? See, Mr. Anthony, please come and become the MLA, MP of the Lok Sabha, in the Lok Sabha of the All India. No, I mean, I must be a duffer if I do it. Nobody would do it. Yeah. So what if you're the thing? So, but he did a clever thing. Of the 2 seats, we had no seats in the upper house, only lower house, which is Lok Sabha. The 2 seats in the Lok Sabha, he did a wise thing. The 2 names that went in were Frank Anthony and A.E.T. Barrow from the association. Okay. He did a wise thing. He gave, from his point of view, he gave Mr. Barrow. So he gave the recognition to the association. Even Frank Anthony, he knew Mr. Barrow was Anthony's right-hand man, still he gave it. And the other, they took their own politician who was close to them, Professor Rudolph Rodrigues, who was my professor in Diaspora University. But still, he was a good choice. Why? He was articulate, he was working for the community. He was the president of the Calcutta branch of the All India Agri Association. The story is actually, yeah, he was elected president. And he backed some people for the MLA's post in the 60s, opposed to Mr. Anthony. And Mr. Anthony was furious with him. And all that. So, but what I'm trying to say is they chose wisely, meaning they didn't want to take Anthony. That is their prerogative. They took Mr. Barrow from the association and they took Professor Rudolph Rodrigues, who came from a region where there are a lot of Anglo-Indians, Calcutta. He's a Jadavpur University professor. He has been with the community all over. Choice was fine that way. This went on. Then what happened was, basically, as the years rolled on, governments, not only in the center but elsewhere, they started doing foolish things like choosing any Anglo-Indian who will bow before them. That was the wrong thing. If you don't take the All India Anglo-Indian Association, you take somebody else who is working for the community, who's known within the community. That was the mistake that kept happening. Anyway, so Mr. Anthony was, then comes Mrs. Gandhi comes back. So guess what? Mr. Anthony comes back. So it's totally politicized.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Anthony should have been there in the first place. Actually, it should have been Mr. Anthony and Professor Rodrigues. I've written it also. It would have been fun with both of them, Anyway, but it basically became a political decision that we will decide who. And then, so this happened. So there was some, I'm not going to, that's too long, I'm not going into specifics, but basically it became that you had to be either a member. Initially, you didn't have to be a member. You have to be close to the government in power. They have to know you or trust you or whatever. And you have to be an Anglo. Other credentials were not so important. So that's when you have a lot of people coming in. We didn't know who the MLA was in a particular state. We don't know. There were, I mean, God bless them, but there were several Anglo-Indian MLAs of Kerala who didn't speak English. Now, there's
Okay.
nothing wrong with not speaking. There's nothing wrong with not speaking English. You don't want to speak English, you don't speak. How will you speak to some Anglo-Indians who don't speak Malayali? They
Exactly.
speak English. He could not come to as an MLA when there were meetings when other MLAs met the thing. He couldn't come because what will he say? He didn't have a language even to speak to everyone, etc. So this happened. There were a lot of good MLAs and MPs, but there were a lot of people who just occupied the seats, and it was quite tragic for the community. And you couldn't find an MLA or couldn't find the MP, or even didn't know who he or she was. Anyway, so that happened. And then the tragedy of tragedies is the Congress party itself uh, gets elected. And in fact, before that, P.V. Narasimha Rao's time, after that, when Mr. Frank Anthony died, they took a long time to nominate the next person. Mr. Frank Anthony and General Williams, when he died, Mrs. Sheila Irani was not automatic. She's from the association. They took a long time. They must have been thinking about what I don't know.
Right.
But the cracks appeared. Then this full coalition of every
Right.
seat counts. So so it happened in the States, etc. And then 2009, when the Congress comes, and again 2014, 2004
4 and 9.
and 9, when the Congress comes, everyone expected the association both rejected. So that's absurd. I mean, this is the biggest body, the oldest body, and the one at least. If I was the decision maker, I would give who are you elected as your president? I'm giving him blindly. And the other one, we will choose from other Anglo-Indians from another area. They shouldn't be two from the same area.
Right.
Some people would go for women. Some people would say one must. Apparently, Mrs. Gandhi said one has to be a woman. I'm against all that. I mean, if both should be women, both can be women also. I'm not into gender stuff like that. If you're a woman or a man, if you're the right person, you're the right person. Anyway,
Right.
and we didn't get it. And one of the persons who got it, there's not on record, there's not a single question from her side, let alone speech for 10 years. So that's really sad. I mean, she's a nice person. She's a friend of mine, but that's not good enough. So many in the community started asking, what is the use of these seats? We who's representing us? We are not selecting it. Then these monies came along, these 2 crores, 5 crores to be spent MP lad. And we didn't know how it is being spent. I know some MPs who have spent it on roads outside their house in some village, in some North Indian thing. How does that benefit the Anglo-Indian community? I don't know. So, many people were very, very, let's say, condescending about this whole thing, and they didn't bother about it. Some of them, many phoned me and told me, we are happy it's gone. That's the wrong way of looking at it in that sense, because just because somebody is, doing a bad job, that doesn't mean the seats should be taken. But coming to the seats, the manner in which this government has done it, that's the problem. That's the problem. See, when the constitution was made, they made it very clear, for 10 years, you will get this job reservation. And every 2 years, the railways, customs, etc., every 2 years, it will go down, 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 down. Clear. Now, don't you think that the government should have done a similar thing? That is in 2 more terms, and then, boss, it's over. I mean, they didn't. In fact, in January 2017, I've written it all in my book. January 2017, we were all Anglo-Indian leaders were called by Sri Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi ji, who was the Minister of State Minorities, for this grand meeting, whole day meeting, with several rounds of tea and lunch and snacks and fantastic meeting. And he said this has been called because the initiative has been taken by the Honorable Prime Minister. We all saluted him, saying, this is wonderful, first time ever. And tell us what your problems are, and we'll look into it. January 17, meeting gets over. The next thing we hear, 2019, December, seats are gone. So if you called us for a meeting, that means you should follow up. And then the reason given, that was deadly, 296 Anglo-Indians, because 296 people in the census of India of 2011 said, I'm Anglo-Indian. Now, those very foolish people, how did they say they're Anglo-Indian when there's no scope to say you're Anglo-Indian? They probably wrote
They,
it in religion or what in
really,
the note.
exactly. They would have written it in the religion column. Yes. Yeah.
No, but that's wrong. So the
Yeah.
296, everybody knows. I mean, let's face it, even the minister knew. We met him
Yeah.
also. And he said the door is not closed and all. So I don't want to go into it. Everyone who knows anything about the community knows that in a particular school, in our Frank Anthony public schools, in the Frank Anthony public school, Bangalore, there are 250 Anglo-Indian children. Over here in Calcutta, there are 150 Anglo-Indian children. So then you take their parents and all, house 296. Anyway, so
Anyway.
the manner in which it was done, and it was the community was hoodwinked, the community was betrayed, because in Parliament they have the numbers. So what they did was they just took away in the same clause as SC/ST and Anglo-Indians. So they redrafted it, and they said SC/ST will continue for 10 years. Obviously, politically they must do that. But in the Anglo-Indian one, they didn't say 10 more years.
10 more years.
So it
Yeah.
was
That's it.
passed because it was passed. So because if you voted against it, that means you are voting against SC/ST continuing. That no
Yes.
political party can do. So it is literally political jugglery
Yes.
and parliamentary jugglery, which was done, which the community did not take well at all. At all. They should have said, you have these problems, etc. Okay. We feel that the seat should not continue. So in the next 5 or 10 years, they'll be phased out. And we will give you representation, maybe one in the Rajya Sabha, maybe in the Minorities Commission, or some things like that had to be done in a process. The knee-jerk thing, this is nothing but uh, a political agenda to, for whatever reason, not to continue that with this small minority.
And I think it goes against consistent principles because this is a 2011 census, and when George Baker and I think there was another person who was nominated in 2014. Even then, the official population was just number 296, right?
Now,
So
see, Srinjoy, you've read the book so well that you're reminding me of things that I wrote.
yeah,
That in 2014, which is 4 full years after 2011. 2011
yeah,
census, 2014 election, this government elected, right? If you are going by census of 11, that means you're saying 296. Why did you nominate two persons from Bengal one and from Kerala one? Why did you nominate two people in the Lok Sabha to represent 296 people? So you're contradicting yourself. And then the different states, they say there are 9 Anglo-Indians here, 1 Anglo-Indian there, no Anglo-Indians here. Or in those states where they had a government, they were nominating an MLA. How do you
yeah.
nominate a person? How did you nominate a person according to your census? There are no Anglo-Indians in that state. Or in Calcutta, West Bengal, there are 9 or 11 Anglo-Indians. Why did you nominate somebody?
Right.
So this is just, it's rubbish.
Anyhow, so moving on to a brighter topic. So I think one, the AI community has like always emphasized on their thrust on character building, and that's a feature that permeates every bit of the Anglo-Indian school experience. So if we could discuss about the Anglo-Indian community's uh, contributions to the education sector, you have been someone who has benefited or been through the schooling system, and now you are an insider who is looking at how the Frank Anthony schools are being run. So if you could share your bits on.
I think it was very well put. This book of mine, I must say, it has been very well received, both within the community and outside the community. And it's very difficult to write such a book because there are so many views and there are so many gray areas. There's not enough literature, not enough, sort of research material, authentic research material around, etc. A. B, wearing the hats that I do wear, it was tough to write it also because I had to give it a lot of balance. But I'm happy that by and large, whether it's newspapers or whether it's people like you, or whether it's librarians or historians, researchers, and common people of my community and others, it's been very well received, except one which I accept. Is I tend to ramble on and on. So I will correct it in my next book. That is, try to be, brevity is an issue with me. The reason I'm talking about this is, so I've received a lot of compliments, but the compliment that I'm going to share with you, which the person mentions the school, what you're talking about, So that's why I'm going to read it to you.
Sure, that would be
Few
great.
days, yeah, few days after the book was released, book was released means there was no release available. 5th of October, I received this handwritten note from the great Ruskin Bond, and obviously people should accept that Ruskin Bond is the greatest living Anglo, and well, for one of the greatest living Anglo-Indian because of what he has achieved. So he sent me this handwritten note, which I am trying to find. I will find it just now. Hold on. So
Yep.
he mentions over there, hang on. He mentions over there this. Hold on. Found. Should I read it?
Yes, sure, absolutely. Go ahead.
You can see it. Sorry, you can't see it. Handwritten. Dear Barry, your book on the Anglo-Indians is a stupendous work and clearly a labor of love. I am engrossed in reading reading every sentence. Apart from being fascinating history, it engenders a better understanding and appreciation of the community. And now, your point. At Anglo-Indian schools, the stress was always on character building. That comes through in your book. A great achievement, best of everything, Ruskin Bond, 11th October 2022. I basically had to show off a little to tell you that I feel that I've received the personal Pulitzer or the Sahitya Academy Award,
Yeah,
private one.
more than this is probably more valuable than those awards,
Yeah, so
according to me.
I will take it. I will take it to my grave. Yes. So even Ruskin Bond has said it. I mean, now that I reflect on it, people used to ask me, and we would give answers like, armed forces, we did this, education and sports and this and that. I'm very clear now, having written the book, the greatest contribution of the Anglo-Indian community is this school system of education. By system, I mean, which has produced Srinjoy Ganguly, who is a balanced person, a knowledgeable person, an articulate person, a person who communicates so well in English, and I'm sure communicates equally well, if not better, in his mother tongue. He should. Yeah. Sometimes that's a bit dicey in our schools because they don't speak as much. But
Very
who
dicey
at
for
least
me,
real,
actually.
yeah, but Srinjoy, but you actually would love to speak better than your mother tongue, is what I'm trying to say. You have not shunned it. Yeah,
Yeah,
if you
no.
were to live, if you live your life again, you would say, "Na, aru Bangla boi porbo," or whatever. Why did I neglect it? Yeah. But what I'm saying is, so like you, there are so many. So I've given so many examples, and the best part, character building without telling you, we are now building your character. Okay, this is the mold you have to fit in. No,
Yeah.
no. You came on and you compared the two schools also. So this is the credit to the Anglo-Indian system of education, where perhaps the greatest left leader of all time, Jyoti Basu, went to a school. I mean, Anglo-Indian school. And L.K. Advani went to St. Patrick's, Karachi. Jyoti Basu went to
Yes.
St. Xavier's, Calcutta. So extreme left and the extreme right. And Shashi Tharoor went to St. Xavier's, Calcutta.
Davis.
And yeah, so what I'm saying is then Jinnah, I think, went to one of our schools, and
Campion, probably.
basically, yeah, yeah, correct. Salman Rushdie. So what I'm saying, Salman Rushdie is not going to listen to any priest or nun or anything like that. So how did that happen? That has happened because, and this is why I want to stress on, besides character building, which is obviously there, that means character means what? That means if somebody's in some trouble, I'm going to try and help the person. I'm not going to ask what's the color of your skin and what jat are you, etc. I'm going to help that person. And basic character of, if I'm a husband, you know, forget beating my wife. I'm going to support her all the way. I mean, I'm just giving examples. So these are all inculcated naturally in our system. Okay. But more importantly, which I've written in my book, it allows you to be you. In spite of all the, obviously you've gone to that school, you know the prayers that are going to happen. Or you know that Founders Day is going to be reading from the Bible or what. You knew that.
Right. Right.
But nobody is coming out a converted Christian. Nobody is coming out, I'm now a Christian boss. I went 14 years to a Christian school or an Anglican school. I'm an Anglo-Indian, I'm a Christian. No. So, that is a huge issue. You are who you are in your own thoughts and beliefs. And people, I know friends of mine who are extremely radical left and right and center and what have you. Sometimes I ask myself, I say, oh my gosh, what's wrong with these guys? Which school do they go to? Because radical things are not in our schools, in our system. You can't be radical about it. Yeah, I'm sharing something very openly with you. As a secular country, if a chief minister is being sworn in, it is an official function.
Right.
Can you have the prayers of any specific religious community in it? Tell me.
Should not, definitely not. Goes against the ethos of our
Well, yes.
constitution, separating
Yesterday
the
they had
church from the state. Yeah.
yesterday they had it in Nagaland.
Yes.
Not acceptable. I'm a Christian. I'm a God-fearing Christian. I wear my Christianity on my sleeve. This crucifix is right in front of me every day when I write. It's right here. But this is my private faith and belief. This is not, you can't be taking my God or your God or anyone's God to a government official function.
Agreed.
So these are the things that, so many of our friends, Hindu friends, they would go in just before the exam into the chapel and, sort of do a namo namo pranam or whatever they would do. They would sometimes go and put their Jishu Pachwe by Mother Mary Pachwe, ye niye dukdo. So that's their prerogative. But nobody ever told them become a Christian. So that's the greatness of these schools, I think. The moment any school of ours tries to force something down, as in that way, prayers are prayers, you have to say the prayers. Otherwise, you should not have come to the school or the hymns or the whatever. But it is only to make you a better person. It's not supposed to tell you, Christianity or bust, you're in hell. Anyone who tells you that, they're getting away from the ethos. So I think this love for sport and this, going out there, winning, losing, trying things. So any of the Anglo-Indian schools or Christian schools, just stop doing all this. Stop playing sport. Stop having concerts or plays or stop having the prefect system or the house system. They might as well not call themselves Anglo-Indian schools. The Anglo-Indian school is this character building thing. You know what I mean? You're a prefect or you're a house captain or you were given responsibility or whatever.
So, there are several parts of the book that I personally found very enriching, which are peppered with lots of personal anecdotes you have. One specific section of the book was about the Anglo-Indian women, which I definitely wanted to speak about. Who were the first women in India, perhaps, to step out? And you actually went on to say that they deserve nothing less than a Bharat Ratna for having done that. So, if you could probably elaborate on it.
I initially just wrote it. I just keep writing, but I thought about it and I really believe it. I'll tell you why. 100 years ago, 120 years ago, your grandmother, your great grandmother, no chance you can find out they were not going out of the house. If they were going out of the house, if your grandfather, great grandfather was a high government official or whatever, then once a year or twice a year, they would wear a shari and go for an official function or something like that. That's it. Yeah. Or if some of them were local teachers. But beyond that, no question of the women going out, stepping out. Whereas it was par for the course 100 years ago, 120 years ago. Even my non-Anglo-Indian great-grandmother, Bangali, but she was a Christian who wore a dress, etc. So she was anglicized. She became a doctor. Okay, but I'm not talking the women, not many doctors and all. I'm just talking about the woman went out to become a telephone operator, to become working in the office, to become teachers. They dressed like they dressed, they wore dresses. They wore slight high heel shoes. They wore it, and they went and they mixed. And the issue was that when they went to an office, were they with men only? Because no other
Right.
women. So this whole thing was, and therefore came the backlash. The backlash of being stereotyped, the backlash of being, they're loose character, they speak to men because you're seen with men. Some of them may
Mahanagar
have been
comes to the mind straight up, like
correct,
City from
correct.
Mahanagar.
So
Yeah.
they may be smoking, they may be drinking, a couple of them, then all of them smoke and drink. That means they sleep around. So all these things to fight all this, to play sport, you can't play sport even in many countries. They Islamic countries, they don't play sport with hijab.
Right.
Or they come from these Moroccan girls who are playing tennis so well. They're wearing the tennis outfit. Imagine 100 years ago, the Anglo-Indian girl doing that. So this is something incredible. And then showbiz and all that is still there, singing and showbiz and what do you may call this, air stewardesses, everything, everything. And it took a long time for modern India to accept. Some people still don't accept, but by and large, modern India, whether it's a Bengali family or a Marwadi family or a Keralite family or a Punjabi family, they want their girls, 8 out of 10 want their girls to work or do the business. Although many of my students now, or students' children who are in their 30s and they got married. There's only one actor condition, actually. There's one condition. That is, my wife has to work.
Work, right? Yeah.
Amazing. Fantastic. Yeah. They want their wives to work. So for that reason, they open the door. For that reason, and through the toughest time, So I'm not saying, obviously that won't happen, that can't happen. But symbolically, they should be given a symbolic Bharat Ratna for making it possible. They're the pioneers, actually.
Right.
Pioneers, yeah. So we are not the pioneers in anything else except school education, school English medium education, and this thing of the women. So something quite incredible. Now, of course, all women. Well, as I say, even it's so easy now. All the Bangla channels and the Hindi channels that I see news, they're all wearing
Western
skirts and
clothes.
trousers
Yeah.
and Western clothes. So now it's easy. Now it's not a big deal. Yeah, everyone's working. Doesn't matter. So the Anglo-Indian woman. Imagine nursing. Imagine 100 years ago, when a man is lying over there. When he's bombed out, he's not wearing any clothes and he's bleeding. Yeah, and she's cleaning him. Just imagine any other woman from any other community doing it. It's impossible. So it's something quite great that they've done, and it should be recognized.
Absolutely. So coming to my penultimate question, something that we have discussed at length in the book is the community experienced a mass exodus of sorts post-independence, where in the 50s, 60s, many people left the shores to go to England, Australia, Canada, etc. So now, when you have these global forums where you meet up as one Anglo-Indian community, do they still hold on to some of the antiquated notions of Anglo-Indian customs or language, while the lines for those who have stayed back have blurred? So this is something that even other scholars like Peggy Mohan have observed in their books, right? So people from, say, Bihar who migrated to the African nations, they still speak an antiquated version of their local language, Bhojpuri, etc., while those back in India have kind of morphed into a mixed version. So yeah, and your thoughts on this?
Very interesting, Shinja. Very interesting. I've actually met some of these Bihari people and others in Mauritius and all. Fascinating, fascinating. He's telling this driver guy was telling us about his mother. What he's saying is absolutely true. So it's very interesting. I think they are even more conscious. They are even more conscious. See, because most of them are 60 in their 60s, 70s, 80s. Yeah.
Right.
So they've got there and they can't change the way they speak. So they speak very Anglo-Indian. Okay. And they've got obviously some of them have got a little bit of an accent or some. Their next gen, Same thing is happening. Their next gen speak less Anglo-Indians and more Australian and more Canadian.
Yeah,
And by the time the third generation comes, it'll be
it's
absolutely
lost.
lines will be. Yeah. So here, let me make it very clear. In speech, there is very little difference or marginal difference between how Anglo-Indians speak and how you speak today. Whereas, if your grandfather who spoke, let's say he spoke good English also like you, and the Anglo-Indian grandfather would speak differently, which is interesting, which I've written about. Anglo-Indians spoke either very much like the British, like called the hot potato, or they spoke a neutral like me, or they spoke, they were living in the ghettos or cocoons, let's say, disdemdos, and they had their own, they couldn't say the TH, they would say duh. I don't know how it came about, and their
Right.
own terminology, etc. Right now, the first one left was very, very British. There were right till the 70s and 80s. I knew people.
Right.
I knew people who would speak very, very British, but not many. Okay, mostly it became. Now, what has happened is uh, my children who are in their 20s, early 30s, they will speak almost exactly like you. Okay. And they would be some Hindi words or some Bangla words or some Tamil words, depending on where they live. So I believe that those lines have blurred. Dress, absolutely blurred. I mean, everyone wears the same thing now. Yeah. So obviously we will wear suits when we get married, but now I see other people wearing suits. Everybody seems to be wearing a suit. Yeah. So I think there's not much, those lines are blurred. Coming to back to your question about those who are in the diaspora, I think some of them are over conscious about it. You know, you can't over live it. You can record it. You should record everything, etc. And that's why some of the things I've written about is just for purely for record. That's why the book became so mota, because I'm not written the book only for sale.
Yeah.
Obviously I want the book to be read. If the book's not sold, then it's not read. So if I had heap pots of money, I would buy many copies of the book and just give it to people who should read it or want to read it. I would give it to libraries. And libraries are ordering it because I mean that's the record. But as people, you can't say we must keep on. No, no, no. It doesn't work like that. You just make it happen. So somebody asked me, what do you do for association now? Why don't you get a record of how many Anglo-Indians there are and this, that? I said, we've tried all this. It's not worked. If the census can't do it, yeah, how will we do it? So what are we doing? We are our culture. That means people like playing housey, or people like dancing, or people like singing, or people like having a prayer together. All that is, we are encouraging people to have it and even put it on social media. Because social media is where we live now,
Right.
not Ganj, not the railway colonies. Few. But social media is everybody. Anglo-Indians are everywhere. So you'll see there's dancing, singing, praying, writing, whatever, cribbing, everything happening. Our culture is very visible over there. And we look out for how can we help our elderly and how can we help our young people get through their education. This is the focus now. Anything else is totally an academic debate and discussion about our language, how we speak and whether it's alive or not alive, etc. And as far as I'm concerned, yes, it is important to record it, how we used to speak and all those. And there are a lot of Anglo-Indianisms I still use or we still use. So we can't change that. Huh?
Right.
So we'll say, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are some. I didn't even put all of it in. I don't know whether I put all of it in. There's some. I could write another chota book of Anglo-Indianisms. Like
Right.
have you had your hapu? Have you had your hapu? I think it may be there. Hapu is food, lunch
For
usually.
lunch.
And yeah, and I asked my wife the other day, listen, I didn't put in jupu. She said, what's jupu? I said, bath. She said, oh, that's not Anglo-Indian. I said, oh, I use it in that. I don't know. Then they said, maybe it's from my Bangla side or Bengali side, jupu. So what
Right.
I'm saying is, it's these terms which are part of the thing. My children use many Anglo-Indianisms still, and many Anglo-Indians use Anglo-Indianisms. But the way we speak is very neutral, like how Indians speak good English. So that's regarding the language.
So the final question is a cliched question of sorts. So What's your vision for the community going forward? I think you have spoken at multiple fora about your thrust on education. You want the youngsters in the community to focus on education. Apart from that, anything else that you'd like to highlight?
So actually, I've just partially answered the question. That is, focus is, it is not too ambitious. That means, we will now have this organized structural thing of how many Anglo-Indians there are. It's a no-go. It's a no-brainer. It won't start. So our focus is very simple. Get good leadership in. Not one leader, multiple leaders. Multiple leaders covers 2, 3 things. It covers geography. We're all over. So we have people from Lucknow and Raipur and Agra and Mumbai and Cochin and Chennai and Pondicherry all on our committee. So geographically, in terms of gender also, there are men and women. In terms of age group, we brought it down. Most of our governing body members are now in their 50s. But just 20 years ago, almost all of them were above 70. Then the fact that they are from different, not all are educationists. Before it was only educationists or only railway people. Now it's like others, because people will come with diverse ideas. Once the leadership comes, see, I'm very clear. God bless all the other organizations. Some of them are doing good work also. Great. I can only speak to you about the All India Anglo Association because it's all India. If the day the All India Anglo Association is not existent, the community is not existent. As simple as that. Because these are 2 or 3, only 2 or 3. There aren't too many. They are the strong ones. I'm talking about the ones who are running. 2 or 3 regional within a state or within maximum 2 states region. But All India Anglo-Indian Association, that's why I tell people get involved. We're telling others also who broke away or who had some problem. Then you forget about all that. Come. It's your association. It's not mine. So this is the vision that if people could come, strengthen the association, build more leaders, yeah, who take it forward. What would we take forward? Education, to make sure like the dropout rate is really low now. It's there,
Right.
but really low from schools. And that's not good enough to encourage more and more people. They go to college, but to go beyond that, or higher studies, etc. And don't go abroad. It's all available here. Come on, let's do it here. That's also our thrust. And a very special place in our hearts for the elderly, because many of their children or others have gone away. So I like make an open offer. We have a home here in Kolkata, the Tollygunge homes. Open offer. Any of the branches or anyone has been told, if you have person, they'll have to relocate to Calcutta because we have it here only. We have there is an old folks home in Delhi. There's one in Lucknow, etc. Come and live if you want, free of cost. Yeah. So the elderly is something very important our branches look after. But education now it's easier because we don't have to tell them that you should know Hindi or Bangla or pass in it at least. They're all passing. The stumbling block has gone. That's the vernacular, which was there in the 60s, 70s, 80s. No, it's not there now. They all pass. Many of them speak very well also. That's a different thing. So learn the language. We don't have to tell them, integrate and all that. It's understood. So that's not the issue. The issue is to encourage them to finish their education as well as go beyond. That's the focus. I'm happy to tell you, I am convinced. I'm not so interested in perception, but I am convinced the community's Everest moment is happening now or about to happen. The lockdown was a big setback. Everest moment meaning the community, the children are working, are studying, they're getting good jobs, etc. And this will continue for another 5-10 years. Where will we be later on? I don't know. I don't know where anyone will be, but that's not the lookout now. Numbers are going down, yes, but not drastically because people are not leaving. So if you marry out and your child is not an Anglo-Indian, that's a different thing, which some people say should be looked at or looked into. I think it's a good debate to look into that also. But I think I'm very positive about the community, especially with more leaders coming in within our association, so that it's not dominated by somebody like me who, because I've got a louder voice, I've got a bigger reach. No, let others come in with different ideas, better ideas, newer ideas. I think that's the vision, and education, as you say, and our culture. If you're doing what you want to do, eating what you want to eat, and living like you want to live, or singing or dancing like you want to do that, that's important. Once that's lost, gone. And the other thing, let us run our schools peacefully. If governments start interfering and telling us who to appoint and what to sing at assembly, and language issues, etc., it's all over.
Makes sense.
Community is over. Not just the community is over. I think a large chunk of the education that we are imparting, well, that's over.
Thank you, Barry sir, for giving us so much time today. It was absolutely a pleasure. Just
Srinjoy, if you
before
don't mind,
sign,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
You go ahead.
just before signing off, just wanted to understand or ask you, if you permit, uh, what can you expect from you next? I guess you're working on a book of of fiction now, fiction novel. That's what you're working on.
Well, Srinjoy, actually, I was going to tell you about this question. I mean, I was going to ask myself this question at on your program. So I just want to say that I never dreamed in my wildest dreams that I would write a non-fiction uh, book which would be kept in libraries. I always believe I could write, and I will write books that people will read,
Right.
they'll enjoy, or they'll be disturbed, or you know what I mean. Yeah. I never, because I didn't think of myself as a writer in that sense. My college professors and my teachers must, they know I'm an honest guy, so they know it's not ghost written. But otherwise, they would have thought this is ghost written. They would never believe that I would write a semi-academic book. Yeah, they would never, semi-scholarly book. They would never believe. And I would also like to share one thing that we didn't speak about, Srinjoy, which no one has spoken about, is right at the end, there is a timeline. So right from 1498 to today, one-liners of what
Right.
happens. That's important. And the other thing is, there's pen sketches where about, 50 words, 100 words about Anglo-Indians, about 300 of them. The known Anglo-Indians, you know, Claudius and Barrow and Anthony and the O'Briens and what have you. But there are a whole lot of people. Please read that about Urdu poets, about a member of one of the Tracy brothers, four Tracy brothers. One joined the army, one was a forest officer, one was a police officer, and one joined the foreign service. Yeah, amazing family. And their father was literally a very ordinary person. And one of these gentlemen, after that, joined Netaji's INA, unknown, and played a key role. In fact, he became friends, etc., and he became I think the ambassador of a couple of countries later.
Yeah.
So this is very interesting because a lot of lesser known, unknown Anglo-Indians who are major achievers. I think that's important. Yeah, coming back to your question, so having done this, I mean, in a way, it's really good because it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the footprints that have left. I'm not saying it boastfully. It will be difficult for anyone to write another book on the community, as in so much detail. I have to credit my publishers for giving me so much space. So to go into so much detail, you'll have to have so many words and so much space. No publisher is going to give any author. No author is going to write 5 years, one book on the Anglo-Indian. And no author will be in a position to write it on the community like I have been, right in the thick of it. From my childhood days, then my father was a leader, then social work, etc. And now I'm the leader. And so that's why. So that puts pressure also. Now what are you going to do? But for me, it's not pressure because I am going to do now what I really wanted to do. This came as a fantastic Christmas bonus, not monetarily. It doesn't earn much money, but where Aleph, David Davidar said, please write this book. So it was great honor for me to do it. But that was not what I was writing. I want to write fiction.
Right.
And I am 80,000 words into my first novel.
Wow.
Yeah. And that, I'm sure, Srinjoy, you'll do a program on.
Definitely, definitely. Booking you
Because
already.
it's yeah, because that is going to be pretty hard hitting or pretty different, etc. But unfortunately for you, me, and at least for me, that is also slightly on the back burner, because after this book, I've signed on the dotted line for the next nonfiction.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I'm dying to finish my novel, but out of due respect to my publisher as well as myself, I'll finish that. I can't unfortunately disclose the subject to you. I can just tell you, I will never write nonfiction on any subject that I don't know really well. So you, as a person from Calcutta and a person who has maybe watched me for some years, you can guess it's a subject that I've known for many, many years. And in this case, a subject that I've known for 60 years. It's not quizzing.
Oh, it's not. I was. That's the first thing I
No,
was
no,
guessing
no, no,
into.
no, no.
It's
Quizzing,
not quizzing.
well, I mean, quizzing. Everyone else should write the book. We can also be part of it. No, it's a big issue. It's a big subject. It's something that I can really enjoy writing about. That's all I can tell you for now. So that, God willing, should be published next year,
Wow.
and then I'm going full time into my novel. The novel is
Nice.
complete. The novel is complete here. Okay, but it's only halfway done otherwise. And the other thing I'd like to share is, in these 2 years, there will be two compilations or collections coming out. One of my children's writing and one of my general writing, which is
Okay.
things that I've written over the years.
Editorials.
Uh, Not editorials, different things, all sorts of things. I used to
Okay.
write Christmas. I used to write Christmas plays for my club.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I said, oh my gosh, this is pretty good. I read it. Yeah, okay. Then I've written a couple of, I sometimes get into the mood and I've written some verse. Not much, but, on issues of relevance, especially obviously all India related. So, God willing, these two titles of my collections, and non-fiction next year, and then the fiction. So, but I will only write things that I'm really close to, things that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about my community. I'm passionate about modern history of India, as in post-independence to now, everything that happened. So whether it was whether it was what happened in Delhi post Mrs. Gandhi's assassination, to what happened with Graham Staines, or whatever. I mean, contemporary India, in that sense, that really fascinates me. Religion fascinates me, or rather the oneness of religion. That's my core area. All non-technical. Best part of me, I think, is that I don't know too much, so it's easy for me to write since I don't know too
Anyone,
much.
anyone who has attended your quizzes will definitely disagree with you on that. But lots to look forward to. We'll wait for this with bated breath. Thank you so much, Barry sir, for your time, and hope to speak with you soon on your next book.
Thank you, Srinjoy, very much. I wish you and your friends and whatever work you are doing, it's wonderful to see young people doing something beyond just their 9 to 5 jobs. So thank you all very much. I hope you will read this book, and I'm sure in time to come you have taken me seriously as a writer. Some people have told me, but a writer who can touch your heart also. That's my intention. So good luck. God bless.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.